Well, where were we? I think we were on the mountain, and I was telling you about the switchbacks and the incline, and it got to be a little complicated. I went up with this buddy of mine the first time, and I got scared out of my wits when we were on the very edge of the mountain. And this is the Rocky Mountains we're talking about. This is not just one little molehill. And when he turned around and I was in the inside, almost scraping the inside, it really was a scary experience, and I wasn't looking forward to having to do this on my own. When he got loaded up on top, it was done in the sense that a caterpillar, called a cat, would skin off the top of the mountain and load it into a truck. Now, the skinning of the mountain and the cat, so the operator of that vehicle was called a cat skinner. And these were the real experts. This was about as tough a job as you could get, because you not only had to scrape off much of the mountain on top, but you had to go to the very, very edge with this vehicle in order to be able to grab it with your shovel and then put it into the truck. And also the same vehicle was used in order to grade the switchbacks every once in a while, the plateaus. You know, when you come to the switchback, you have to have a very plain and very straight area, or the truck will not be able to get by there. So they had to do that every once in a while. And this guy really knew how to operate that equipment. It was one of my fellow tent mates, the Indian, and he was very good at it. I will show you a picture of myself on that cat, but that's a phony. That was not my cat. I never operated the thing. It just looked good. And the other picture I will show you is of my two tent mates. And then a third one of the condition of the road from Watson Lake to Cassiar. You won't believe it. When it rained, it was just impossible, and we had to be dragged in by a cat. In other words, the truck was stuck, and the truck had to be pulled out by a cat, and then the cat got stuck. So we had some fun times. And yet there were some bigger trucks that hauled the asbestos that we had brought down from the mountain to a processing plant in Whitehorse. They first had to get to Watson Lake, and then from there on the Alaska Highway to Whitehorse. Now, the Alaska Highway was anything but a highway. It was a gravel road, and at that time it was called a macadam. It was a surface that's a bit better than gravel. And still it's nowhere near a finished road. Well, anyway, I was taught how to drive there, and on the way down I noticed that not only was he in first gear, but he was in bull low. Now, bull low was, there are two series of 4 gears, a total of 8 gears. You have gear 1 to 4, and then you had a red switch, and that switch allowed you to have a 1 and a bull 1, and you have a 2 and a bull 2. And these were called, and then in addition to that, we had a graph in there, a recording device that wrote on a disc, on a paper disc. And when we came down, the disc was collected, and we were told what we did wrong, and whether we shifted on time, and all of those things. And when there was an accident, and I'm afraid we had a couple of them, they could reconstruct the accident pretty much from this disc. It's almost like a black box in an aircraft. Anyway, we got down okay, and I had my doubts, and he said, "Do you feel you want to take a chance? You want to drive?" Well, I wasn't too enthusiastic about this, but I gave it a try, and I did it okay, but it wasn't anything to brag about, believe me. I'm not the brightest candle on the Christmas tree, for sure, and this was one of my demonstrations, and I finally did drive a few times, and then the boss came by and he said, "Bernie, I'd like you to drive the crew up and down the mountain." Now, you may think that that's a compliment, and at first I thought it was, but it turned out it wasn't really. The crew truck was a lot easier to drive. You had they called it, I think a 2x6 was a Dodge crew wagon with seats in the back and 1 seat in the front, in addition to the driver. And I got pretty good with this thing. This was easier to handle. It wasn't that tough a piece of equipment. You didn't have to go down and bull low. You could go down a little bit faster, and I liked that vehicle. But just one little incident that happened, and this is with my roommate. He was a mechanic. He worked on generators, and that was his specialty. And he was called up to the on top of the mountain to work on one of the generators that had gotten stuck. And he needed to be taken down. So when I was up there to bring the crew down, I asked the other crew members to sit in the back, and he was sitting next to me in the front. And while we were going down, now you understand this is a pretty hairy operation. You really had to pay attention. While we were on one of the straight sections between the switchbacks, he asked me whether I wanted a sandwich, and I said, "Sure, Joe, why not?" He gave me something, and I couldn't even look at it. It was a white bread, so I bite into it, and nothing happens, and I figure there's nothing on there. So what is this? There's nothing in there. Oh, he said, "Keep going." Well, we were getting close to the switchback, and I took another bite, and I couldn't bite through it. There was something very hard in there, and I couldn't understand what it was. I said to him, "What the hell is in there?" And then by the time I got through the switchback, I put it aside and picked it up again and tried to bite again. Again, I couldn't get through it. He laughed his head off, and I said, "What's so funny?" And he said, "You just bit on a thumb." I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He said, "You know, when I was up at the generator, the guy that had been fiddling around with it, he put his hand in, and the fan chopped off his thumb, and it fell on the bottom. And I picked it up, and I thought it was going to be fun to show it to the guys and have some fun with it. You don't seem to think you don't seem to so amused by it." I said, "You really?" I would have liked to clobber him or throw him out of the truck. I was so disgusted with it, and then I was going to throw the sandwich out, and he stopped me from doing that because he was going to pull the same stunt on somebody else. So this is the kind of character he was, and all in all, I still liked the guy, but I mean, he was a bit rough. Now, as for the black guy that we had in our tent, he was another character. He was wonderful when he was sober, absolutely wonderful. Could do anything with him, he'll do anything for you. But boy, let him have a drink, and the guy was totally out of control. And one time, he set the tents on fire. Now, we didn't have police in this camp. It was a town to be built. It wasn't a town yet. And so we had to sort of contain him. I don't know, it wasn't that easy. And he calmed down. We had to make sure that he didn't get his hands on any more alcohol. And that was okay. So these were the kind of characters I was bunking with. Well, we got down, I became the driver for the trucks. And then one day we had one of those smart asses on the among the friends who knew everything better, and he said he could make the trip 2 trips or 3 trips a day instead of just the 2 that we made by going in the second bull gear, and the second lowest gear. And we said, you're gonna get yourself killed. This is crazy what you're doing. You need to go in first gear. Well, he knew better, and he was at the switchback, and he was trying to shift into first gear, and then started rolling, and then was about to switch into second gear, and at that time he was in neutral, and the truck was speeding up with a 10-ton load in the back. There was no way that he could now get into first or even into second gear. He would have to get into high gear and then from there work his way down, and there was no way and no time that he could do this. So this guy was flying. I mean, he was really flying, and then he was flying right off the edge of the mountain. And that was about the 5th switchback from the bottom, so he was about 5,000 feet up in the air. And when he came down in one place, the truck came down in many pieces, and the load right on top of him, it was a mess. Of course, he was dead right off the bat. And we were all called in later, and they went over this trip, and they said, look what happened, and so on and so forth, and don't let this happen again. You know damn well you're not supposed to do this. And the guy was a smart ass. What are we going to do now? We're going to have to ship him back. And there was no way we could get him out other than by calling the state police, in this case the Mounties really. And they sent a plane, it was an amphibious plane, onto a small pond that we had outside the camp, and picked him up and brought him back. This is, by the way, the same procedure we used for anybody that got sick or got hurt. There was just no police, there was no ambulance, there was no hospital, there was really nothing. So we're getting to the end of this story again, and I'm nowhere near finished, and I wanted to show you some pictures, so if I don't get around to it, forgive me. I haven't got my director's status yet. I don't know what takes so long. But I may have to quit right now and pick up tomorrow where I left off today, because I want to get this story done, and then I'll take a week off and I'll continue. So Phyllis, just give me a chance to process this one, get it on the air. And by the way, the comments are not coming in, and obviously the viewers aren't there, and I got to do a little jazzing up of this story here. So next time I hope to be able to do that with the pictures. Okay, so long guys.